The following presentation was recorded at the NDS Public Conference in September 2020.
So, I'd like to put out the claim that TomTom is the leader in NDS maps in terms of how many customer projects we serve and how many maps we release. And some information and some background is in this presentation. Starting with the vision of TomTom, which is to help creating a safe, connected, autonomous world, obviously related to mobility in one way or another. This is where TomTom comes from, initially being a consumer-focused company with consumer products, but eventually, because if you have the assets in terms of navigation software, in terms of map data, it is obvious that you can use this in many, many areas. And these areas are the automotive business, the enterprise business, and the consumer business. And in all three areas, TomTom has been pretty innovative. They created the whole product category of P&Ds, for instance. They were pioneering the traffic that is generated based on probe data and delivered via cellular networks. And in the mapping space, obviously, one of the early adopters or creators of HD map data. And in the meantime, having moved on to the point where we have commercial projects that we support in that space. And where does NDS play a role in this business? In all three areas. That is one of the unique aspects of this company, that in one way or another, NDS products are used. That is already one explanation, or we can actually reach out to a big customer base and be leading in this in the delivery of NDS products. Now, what kind of products are these? Obviously maps, map content. We have a global database, SD map, ARIS maps, HD maps. We have services, traffic services, other dynamic content, map APIs, plus all sorts of delivery services that relate to delivering a connected experience inside a vehicle or on mobile devices. And finally, all sorts of software assets, including navigation software, of course, and then that is being used in all different flavors in the consumer, automotive, or enterprise space. Where does NDS play a role? Obviously, we compile NDS maps. We have a compilation business. We are in production mode for many years, and this is a continual evolution and growth of how many maps we create and release. Next to the maps, we also deliver updates. We have a hosted update service for update packages. We can make them available through a distribution mechanism, a content delivery network. That is part of the whole ecosystem for update delivery. And one special way of using map update packages is obviously to install or deinstall certain parts of a map if you want at runtime by an individual who wants to install something. Very obvious use case for consumer devices, where you may not have a pre-installed map of an entire continent. Then we have services where NDS maps are used in the backend as a server map, and then all sorts of functionalities built on top of that, such as routing. And finally, not surprising, we eat our own dog food, and we have applications, SDKs, as well as end-user applications in the consumer space that use NDS maps, that run on them. And over time, we build a big customer base. A lot of big names in the automotive industry and technology industry. The logos I'm showing here, almost all of them are using NDS maps in one way or another. At the right bottom, obviously, some things in the pipeline. Very clear, this story continues. Now, how did we get here? The first maps in operational use were happening in the year 2013. So around about the time that the very first NDS products ever hit the road and hit the market, which was 2012 by BMW, and then shortly after this one. We migrated all our navigation software to NDS. That was a choice. and many other NDS members around that time did the same. So we put a big bet on NDS, and it delivered. We have then, obviously, because of being TomTom and being operating in different business domains, extended the use of NDS and where it can be deployed. So grew the deployment rate considerably. As a map supplier with a global map or partner maps, we also covered the whole planet. And so we have NDS maps and update services virtually everywhere, in many places in production. In one white spot, which is Korea, we're going to be there very soon, and then it's no white spots anymore. And what I mentioned before, it's not just NDS maps and compiling them, but it's actually looking at it as being a service, NDS as a service, offering the possibility to serve updates, to offer map management flexibly by also having a backend that supports all of that. And having developed that, having rolled it out, meant that over-the-air updates, of incremental updates in particular, is something that we do for years now, for 3 years. And that is standard part of a package of today. Now, how is it possible that we can grow and scale without the need that our organization has to scale accordingly? We have had the economies of scale of being able to eventually learn and develop a best practice for how should we configure NDS maps, or how it was called earlier today, what filling spec should it be? And we have identified dedicated profiles for different use cases. Automotive, obviously, for infotainment. Mobile, for consumer use cases on a smartphone, for instance. A server map profile, plus a dedicated artist profile. So the roadmap work with properties that are relevant for a black box systems, for e-horizons and so forth, where we have commercial products on the market. And that allows us to, in fact, increase the rate of reuse, to create synergies, operationally, process-wise, allowing for automation, for being faster, in essentially being able to take on new customers with limited extra efforts. And that includes customers that sometimes, from the moment that we are awarded a business, have the intention to launch and go into the market within 6 to 9 months. We had that. And we were able to support such cases. Now, finally, looking at certification numbers, which is an indicator for how many maps are being released and in actual commercial use. On the left-hand side, there is a chart for how many maps had been submitted, or certificates for maps had been submitted to the NDS Association and the certification coordinator at the end of 2018. And that is round about 1,000. And 2 years later, the whole industry grew. Many more maps have been created. Many more NDS products and platforms have been launched. Many more cars and other devices are equipped with NDS maps. And the total size is now around about 3 times as big as 2 years ago. And the blue part of this donut is the portion of TomTom, where it clearly shows that we have a pretty big part of that business, and it has grown, increased, even at a higher rate than the average. So that corresponds to tens of millions of users using NDS maps one way or another. And of course, there's more to come. There's a pipeline, and that is waiting to be released. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Volker, for the insight and overview about TomTom's offering for NDS. We're still good in time. So are there any questions from the audience online? No? Questions from the guys here? All still active, waiting for the coffee break? Yeah, then let me at least raise one question. Sure. We're also talking after the break about the future of NDS, NDS Live. We heard also some aspects from Volkswagen, what they think. So from TomTom's point of view, do you see any wishes, requests for the future, for future NDS versions that we would like to mention here?
I think it is important that we get sufficient amount of application and service expertise in this work. Now, where NDS Classic was related to the traditional business of compiling maps, you had compiler experts in the design, and we need to change that profile. It is happening to some extent, but I think we can do better. And then it should become much more practical, which fortunately this is happening now with this development group, this joint development, where I guess a lot will be learned and things will be proven, but also things will be found that need to be changed and done better. And so that is what we need, a much broader sort of activity level. And in particular, we have to have like all segments of membership represented, including OEMs that need to tell, is this what they want or is it something else? Huh?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. I think this is important, and just to reiterate that the paradigm changes we introduce with NDS Live is more than just HD maps and a little bit of different versioning and packaging. With NDS as a service, some concepts will be fundamentally different going forward, and that has a huge impact throughout the whole chain, from OEMs to the suppliers, software companies, map providers, compiler manufacturers, and so on. Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Visit our website for news on NDS at nds-association.org.